Welcome to the InteGREAT Leadership Podcast, where we help you lead the hardest person you will ever lead, yourself. Here's your host, someone who believes leadership begins at home, InteGREAT.
What's going on, everybody? I hope you are chasing greatness. It's what we talked about last week on the show. And today I've been thinking about another level of chasing greatness. I've been thinking about the way great people think. And so today I'm going to give you a few things to hopefully spur your thinking and maybe even change your world a little bit. I read a quote this last week. I thought this was kind of cool. It said, loving people live in a loving world and hostile people live in a hostile world. And it's the same world. It's by a self-help guy named Wayne Dyer years ago. He said that. Think about that. Loving people live in a loving world. Hostile people live in a hostile world. It seems like there's a lot of people these days living in a hostile world. Everybody's so upset and so frustrated, and it's because they're choosing to think that way. And yet there are some people who are living in a loving world. Those are the loving people. They think differently. And so how we think really determines a lot of things. There's actually a verse in the Bible that says, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. I think sometimes just the way we think, it really does influence a lot. So I've got a few things today I want us to think about. I got my buddy Scott Morgan, one of our coaches, who he actually was on one of the shows several months ago. I don't know, 2 or 3 months ago. Scott hung out with us, and you got to hear his interview. You can find him back in the old shows if you didn't hear that. But you're going to get to hear some stuff from Scott today. He's got a couple of perspectives here that I thought were really good that'll tie into some of the things we're talking about. So let me give you some things to think about today. I think when I think about how great people think, the thing I think that fascinates me the most is they always think they can make things better. I love when a leader or a person who may even not be a leader just has this sense of belief that they can make things better. They never settle for the status quo. They're always trying to push the boundaries and get us to a better place. I love that. When I'm hiring somebody, I want somebody who's positive. I want somebody who believes that they can make things better. When I'm working with someone, I love the person who thinks they can make things better. When I'm talking to somebody, I love the person who thinks they can make things better. The best people that I know always think they can make things better, and they're always pushing to try to raise the bar on their life, their leadership, whatever it is they got going on. So years ago, I was a really young guy at that time. This was a long time ago. I was this is I don't know, probably 30 years ago, honestly. And I got hired as a basketball coach, a high school basketball coach, and I was going to be coaching a girls team, which was pretty fascinating. I'd never coached girls basketball. I'd done just a little bit of coaching before that, and yet never had coached girls basketball. And I was really excited about that, and I learned so much when I was doing that. But the head of the school who actually ended up hiring me, I'll never forget the interview. I come in and this guy, I'm sitting in his office and I'm kind of nervous, and I'm thinking I really want this job. And here's what he tells me. He says, we didn't win a game last year. That was his thing to me. He said, we did not. The girls, they didn't win a game. He didn't say we. He said the girls didn't win a game. I don't think he wanted to be lumped in with losing, but or at least that's what I would have thought. But actually, he didn't really mind it, because he said in the next breath, he said, if I hire you for this job, I really don't care if we win any games this year. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this guy he's pretty satisfied with not even mediocrity. This guy's he's satisfied with losing, and like that's not going to fly with me. So anyway, I get this job and I go in and. I could see the challenge on day one. I show up on the very first day, and there are only 3 girls who come to practice the very first day of practice. So that was going to be a problem, because if you don't know basketball as far as the coaching side of it, you at least probably know you have to have 5 to have a team. And so I'm like, this is a problem. And so I remember telling a couple of those girls, you got to go find your sisters or your cousins or the cheerleaders or whoever you can get. We got to have more than 3. And so we ended up with 6 the next day, and we did have a team, and we we had a rough year, but we did win 3 games, which was kind of a miracle considering how bad we were. It was not, and I didn't know what I was doing as a coach, but I knew I wanted to make things better. And we actually did get better. And, 3 or 4 years later, we actually lost in the state championship game. So it was pretty cool to start no wins, 3 wins, got all the way to 28 wins that last year. 4 years later, and I look back on that. That was a lot of fun. But I think the thing that made us successful was not my skill, not my ability, talent as a coach. Experience having worked with young girls. It really was the fact that I just thought we could make this better. And there was a sense of belief with some of those young women on that team, and they still are. Some of them are coaching now, and they've got great lives, and they've done some incredible things over the last 30 years. When I look back on some of the things they're doing, still follow some of them. And so shout out to the Lady Eagles there. But I think that sense that we thought we could make things better was a really cool part of that story. And I think the best people, the people who think great, people who are chasing greatness, they really do think they can make things better. So here's my question for you. Do you have an area in your life, in your leadership, in your family, in your personal finances, your body? I mean, pick an area where you think you can make things better. Speaking of this whole with your body, I'm gonna throw it over to Scott here. If you heard the show with him months ago, his health journey has been just pretty fascinating to watch, and he's just still making progress. He's done such a great job with that. I'm going to let Scott share with you here a couple of things that this idea of having a belief that you can make things better, that was part of his journey where he admitted to himself, this is where I am, and I actually want things to be better. Listen to what Scott's got to say.
Randy, that's a great question. As you and I both know, mindset is really important, and having the right mindset is definitely critical. There's 2 things that come to mind when I think about having the right mindset, whether it's going into a fitness journey or really any kind of important decision. And the first thing I would say is you want to begin with the end in mind. You establish where you are, but it's also important to understand, like, where do you want to end up? In regards to my fitness, I knew that I wanted to be the best version of myself possible. I wanted to be the healthiest version of myself possible. And so essentially that was what I had in mind at the end. And as you know, and many people know, that's an ongoing journey. That's an ongoing process to get to that place. I don't know that you completely ever arrive at that destination where you say, okay, I'm done working on my health. But beginning with the end in mind is important. Know the direction you want to go when you go into something. And then secondly, what I would say is stick to the plan. You create a plan, and you can revise it some, and you can adapt it some to certain circumstances, but don't overhaul the plan just because you have a couple setbacks. Learn from your mistakes, learn from your failures, learn from your missteps, but just make sure you stay the course. Stay the course towards that destination that you want to end up, and you'll definitely be successful in adopting the right kind of mindset.
I love this mindset that it starts with this belief that you can make things better. Do you have an area in your life? It may not be weight loss for you, may not be health, may not be fitness, it might be your finances, it might be a relationship, it might be something at work, a team you're starting or a team you're a part of, or maybe things are just stuck and you feel like the circumstances around your life are not where they need to be. Is there one spot where you think you can make things better? If you don't think you can, you will not. So it starts with a belief. So pick an area and believe that you can make things better. It's the way great people think. Well, here's the second thing they do. I've been thinking about great people, the way they think, and they always think positively. They think positive. They believe things are going to be okay, and they're going to make them okay. They have this optimistic outlook. They have this optimistic mindset rather than a pessimistic. If you're not careful, you can get real critical, real negative. Things can go south. And if they do, you're going to have a hard time being great. If you're chasing greatness, you have got to be positive. You've got to have belief, especially if you're a leader. Some of you out there listening are leaders. Most of you probably have places where you have influence. You flex your leadership in places. And I can tell you this, if you have any hint of negativity in yourself, your team is going to feed off of that. It's amazing how it's almost like we talk about courage being this way. It's like a muscle. If you work it out, it grows. Well, your outlook, your optimism, your positivity, your negativity, those things are like muscles as well. And if you're working that positivity mindset out, you're going to become more positive, and the people around you are as well. If you're negative at all, though, it is going to be a short path to negativity around your life as well. So great people, they do believe they make things better, but they also approach things with a positive outlook. They have this glass really half full, to be cliche. They have that mindset that they're going to be able to make things better. And so how's your outlook right now? Are you making things positive? Are you believing that things really can be better? And if you don't believe that, if you don't have that sense of belief and you don't have a positive outlook toward that, you're going to have a hard time changing things. So I'm guessing there's a place or two in your life where you feel challenged right now. And I would ask you, how's your attitude in that area? Are you still positive? You may feel challenged. You may feel like you're up against the ropes. You may feel like you've been knocked down. But are you still positive that you're going to get up and you're going to keep pursuing greatness? You're going to keep chasing greatness. You're going to keep trying to be your very best. If you are not careful, as I said, you'll get negative, you'll get critical, and it will cause you to give up. And so, is there a place in your life right now where you need to be more positive? And I would challenge you to maybe even pause this and say, I'm going to write this down. I'm going to write down, here's one area where I need to be more positive. Here's one relationship. Here's one project, here, whatever. And here's one thing I'm going to do to be more positive. I'm going to identify the area, but then I'm going to identify what it is I'm going to do. And a week from now, when you come back for next week's episode, you're going to be able to say, I did that. I did that this last week. I chose to be positive. I chose to have a mindset that was different. So leaders, they think they can make things better, and then they think positive. And those are two of these things I've been thinking about this week. Like, they're always positive, and they always believe they make things better. Well, here's a third thing. And Scott's going to weigh in on this one in a second as well. But I love this one. Is the best leaders I know, they think that they should help others be great. The people who are chasing greatness, the people who are great, they think they should help other people be great. Now, I could give you story after story of people that I know who are helping other people be great. I have so many people in my own life who have helped me make progress, and they've believed in me and have encouraged me and helped me. I think you probably could do the same thing. You probably, if you really stop and think about it, there are people who have invested in you, believed in you, encouraged you, who if they had not done that, you wouldn't be where you are. I want you to think about those people. I've shared this old quote before. I love this. Those who drink the water should never forget those who dug the well. And some of us drink out of a really deep well because of people who have invested in us, believed in us, people who really think or had this belief that they should help other people be great. And they've shared some of their greatness. I think it makes us greater when we share our greatness. We talked about last week, we reflected on a little bit on the Super Bowl and those quarterbacks that were playing, and we talked about how the great players are the ones who really make everybody around them great. It's this mindset that we're talking about here, that we think we should help others be great. And as I think about people around me, next generation people, there's so many people, those of you who listen, I want you to be great. I mean, that's really one of the reasons we do this, is we want to help you unleash the greatness in you when we think about trying to encourage and equip leaders and people who would listen. But I want to think back on a person who really did invest in me in a kind of a crazy way. I look at their belief in me, and it's a guy that I wrote Unstuck and Finding Your Way, these two books that we wrote together, a guy named Dan Webster. Dan is, 10, 12 years older than I am, and I've been friends with him for, 25 years now. I've known this guy. And all along the way, he has continued to believe in me, invest in me, encourage me. And as I think about him, he is so great in so many ways. And yet he has continually, not just for me, but he has helped other people become great. And when I think about him and this generosity that he brings, it makes me want to grow up and be like Dan. That's the way I would say it. So as you think about that and just somebody who would believe in me, somebody who's believed in you, I want to ask you, who is it that you need to be believing in right now? Who is it that you need to be encouraging right now? Scott's got a story of somebody who invested in him, somebody who's believed in him, somebody who's made an impact on his life. I want you to listen to this story, and then I got a challenge for you. So check this out from Scott.
Somebody who comes to mind is our good friend John Orr. When I was younger and really just starting out in regards to leadership, he did three things for me. Number one, he empowered me. He wanted me to be the best version of myself possible. As a matter of fact, during that time when he was empowering me, I think he saw more potential in me than maybe I even saw in myself. And then secondly, he entrusted me. He gave me real opportunities to lead. He gave me real opportunities to take on responsibility and help shape me and mold me into a better leader. And then finally, the last thing, there was grace in the process. You know, John was really good at offering forgiveness in my failures. I was a brand new leader, didn't know really much about leading myself or other people. And he just saw greatness in me. He saw someone who was hungry to learn, had a desire to grow, had some raw skills, but just needed to be developed. So just very, very appreciative of him and numerous people like that over the years who have shaped me and molded me into the leader I am today.
Okay, we're back. Scott he's got somebody's invested in him, somebody who's believed in him. He wouldn't be where he was if it wasn't for that. It's great stuff. And Dan's helped me. I got people that have believed in me, other people that have. You can think of people who have invested in you. Here's my challenge for you. I want you to pick one of those people who invested in you, one of those people who helped you get where you are. They've helped you be great. They've convinced you that there is greatness in you. I do want to remind you that there's greatness in you right now. Let it out. Keep chasing it. Keep trying to be great as you go. But I want to challenge you to write that person a note or to pick up the phone and give that person a call. If they're still around, if they're not still around, maybe you want to just say a prayer and thank God that He put that person in your life for that season they were there. But there's probably a way that you can say thank you to someone who has invested in your life, maybe even recently. And it might be somebody that, maybe it's not even somebody that's older, maybe it's somebody that's younger on your team who's believing in you, they're working for you, they're hanging out with you, they're helping you. I got people around me that are helping me, and I'm so grateful for them. I want to challenge you to identify that person and say thank you. And then the second side of the coin, or let's flip the coin over and think of someone that we can help be great this week. Who is someone that you can encourage and you can remind them that there's greatness in them as well, and you can even help them to let that out. There's things you can do to encourage them to think the right way. You might even share this podcast with them. That'd be great. That'd be one of the ways you can help us, is to share with someone. But there's somebody who needs to hear this. There's somebody who needs to feel what it means to chase greatness and be reminded that it's the way you think that's got a lot to do with that. So be thankful. Write a note to somebody who's helped you, and then turn around. Let's pay it forward. Let's help someone, and we'll make sure that we're helping others be great. Now, here's a nuance to this, but I want to share this, and Scott's got another little thing he's going to share here that I think this will be helpful. He's got a great little way to think about this. But the fourth thing they do, let me go back to our list. They think they can make things better. They think positive. Great people think they should help other people be great, but But great people also think others first. They think others first. And that's a little different than helping someone be great. This is more of that servant mindset that we talked about last week. And if you were on last week's show, you even remember where I didn't define greatness, but I let Jesus define greatness. If you recall the episode, there we talked about how this mom comes to Jesus and he says, if you're a Bible reader, you've probably read this story. The mother of James and John, can my kids sit by you when everybody gets to heaven? And Jesus is like, you don't understand. I call her the ultimate soccer mom. She's like, she's helicopter mom, right? She's in maybe deeper than she needs to be here. And Jesus just reminds her, hey, it's not the position that makes you great. He says to her, the one who is the servant actually is the one who is great. The one who thinks others first. If I could, paraphrase those words from Jesus, I think there's this mindset of being a servant and being willing and having what I call an I'd love to mindset. If somebody asks you to do something, what's your heart there? Do you really show up and serve with a willingness, with a positivity? It's easy to be positive when we're just at home by ourselves, thinking about, listening to a podcast, going, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna be positive." But when somebody asks me to do something, do I have this mindset of I'll get to that in a minute, or I'll get to that in a few, maybe I might not even get to it at all. I'd like to, but I can't. Or do we have this I'd love to mindset? I think there's something powerful when we as leaders who have the positions, we have the authority, we have the power sometimes, we choose to take what we've been given and we share that, we give that, we empower someone else around us. And it starts by racing to the back of the line when it comes to this servant mindset. We don't need to be in the front of the line. We really, we want to make sure that we come to the back of the line when it comes to position and authority. I just think it's so powerful when we think others first. It's one of the core heart habits that we teach in the Heart of Leadership, some of the content we teach in organizations. I just think there's something powerful about this mindset of being a servant. And one of the places we get to practice this the most is in marriage, if you're married, and or if you're in a relationship, but especially if you're married. And there are these two little words that sort of propel us to think others first correctly. They're two foundational words in marriage. Listen to what Scott's got to say about this. This is great stuff.
I was talking to a leader recently, and he made the statement that he wanted his team to buy in. My first question was, buy into what? And he proceeded to share at least 12 different things that he wanted his team to buy into. And I asked him the question about his marriage. I said, what is it that you buy into when you agree to get married? And we came up with these two simple words that really, you hear them at every wedding ceremony, but they're powerful, powerful words. And that's the words, I do. What you're ultimately agreeing to when you say I do is you're agreeing to serve your spouse unconditionally. Really what it comes down to is marriage is servant leadership. It offers the perfect laboratory or the perfect classroom for us to practice servant leadership. So as we identified those two powerful words, I said, what are the 2 or 3 words, maybe 4 words, that you could come up with that would act as your I do in your business, have that same type of power, but could mean multiple things. And so he's working on that, but what we want to focus that around, what we want to go after in his organization, and really, quite frankly, in every organization we work with, is what's the level of servant leadership in the organization, in the business, on the team? Do they agree when they get up in the morning, when they show up for work? Does your team agree to set aside some of their own selfish desires, maybe some of that self-centeredness that we all carry, and do what's best for the team or do what's best for the people around them? Really serve them in an authentic way. I think that's a fantastic reminder for us that, as we always say, The best kind of leaders are servant leaders.
Okay, so those two little powerful words, I do. I love those. I want to. We're not married to everybody around us, so let's just expand those and let's have a mindset this week of I'd love to. I'd love to. Maybe if it's with your spouse, it's still an I do. It's like I need to do this, and I need to have this servant not just do the action, but I need to have the right heart behind the action as I do it. But I also want you to think about your coworkers or your kids or the people that you answer to, maybe your boss or somebody that's on your team, somebody that you work with or play with. You got a team that you're a part of, whatever. Some of you athletes listening, I love those words. I'd love to. I'd love to. I'd love to. When someone asks you to do something, you say, I'd love to. It just communicates to them that I'm with you, I'm serving you, I'm going to help you. Go back to what we talked about earlier. I'm going to help you be great. And when you unleash the greatness in others, I promise you, you are going to be great. So again, let's review our list. The people who think great, that I've been watching and I've been listening to and I've been hanging out with and I've been thinking about this, they think they can make things better. They think positive. They think they should help others be great. They go a layer beyond that and think others first. And then finally, how do they think? They think. They actually think. They schedule time to think. They pull back and they think. So when's the last time you spent any time thinking? When is the last time you scheduled an hour to think? You pulled out a legal pad, you got yourself a pen. Maybe you didn't have anything to think about. You just laid it on the table and you sat there and you thought, what do I need to think about? I want to give you permission to schedule an hour with yourself. Maybe 10 minutes with yourself would be a good starting point for some of us. I spent some time this weekend thinking. I spent some time like, what do I need to think about? And there's all kinds of things that can to be there. Sometimes we have problems that we need to think about. Sometimes our problems are there because we haven't spent any time thinking about our problems. Sometimes we've been complaining about our problems. Sometimes we've been negative about our problems, but we really haven't sat down and said, what's the problem? And written it out on a piece of paper. And what are some possible solutions? And let's see if we can make a list of 20 of those. And then let's think of 5 these might be wild solutions. They're not really going to be realistic, but maybe 4 or 5 of them might be worth thinking about more. And then maybe we could just circle one of them and say, this is the one that I think I need to think about today. And let's think about 3 or 4 things that we could do to make this one thing happen to maybe make this problem go away. I promise if you begin to think about your problems in a strategic way, not just sound like, I wish my problems would go away, but you really begin to think about how can I make this go away? What are these barriers? I think, to use our word, that your problems will begin to melt in front of you. And in fact, the best leaders I know, they eat problems for breakfast. I mean, it's like, that's why they're leaders. That's why they're in the role they're in, because they solve problems and they make those things go away. So do you have some problems that you need to think about? Write them on paper, write some possible solutions, write 1 or 2 things you're going to try and see what happens. If it doesn't work, go back and maybe evaluate your list, and maybe there's another solution that you could try. Here's another thing that great people think about. They think about opportunities. It's almost like a vision kind of time with yourself where you write down, what are some opportunities I have? Right now, in the midst of all the chaos, you have an opportunity to learn some things. You have an opportunity to try some things. We've said for the last few months that disruption, which we are in a time of chaos and disruption, we've said that disruption creates permission. It is I go back to one of my daughter's weddings. She was freaking out, 6 months ago before this wedding. Like, what do we do? We can't have our 300 people. And I reminded her that this pandemic is the ultimate permission slip. It's the permission slip. It is like, you get to try whatever. Nobody's going to hold it against you that you invited this many people or you tried to do it here. And she was able to take that and say, okay, we're going to do some things different. They had an incredible ceremony. Still were able to have 125 people, which was great last summer, which seemed impossible at the time. They were able to do it in a creative way, and it was fantastic. I know other people who had a wedding on Zoom. They actually got married on Zoom, which sounds crazy, but it's actually not crazy right now. Everything's on Zoom. So I think you have a chance right now to try things. But if you don't think about what are some things we could try to take us toward our vision, to take us toward better, what are some opportunities we have? What are some places where everybody else is doing this? They're scared. We could go over here and we could flex courage. And so I think if we don't have time set aside to think about our opportunities, we'll just spend our whole life wishing that things get better, hoping that things get better. And as we say all the time, hope is really not a strategy for high performance. And so I think great leaders really do think about their problems. They think about their opportunities. They also think about what they're learning. They think about what they're learning. And I know I hang out with a group of guys. A few weeks ago, we had a conversation. We spent a couple hours just listing all the things we've learned over the last year together. And it was fascinating conversation to hear these big time thinkers sharing some of the things that they've learned over the last year. And it helped me as I tried to calibrate some of the things that I've been learning this last year. So to schedule some time to think about what you're learning, and then maybe to schedule some time to think about some of the things that you need to think about going forward, as crazy as that sounds. And so I want to encourage you, again, schedule a time, a consistent time on your calendar. You might have a half day each month. You might have an hour every Thursday. You get to pick. You may need a 3-day retreat in a couple of months from now. You get to decide what it looks like. But I'm telling you this, if you don't spend some time thinking by yourself and identifying problems and opportunities and things you're learning and opportunities that you have even to grow and things that you need to think about, you will really have a hard time feeling like you're creating traction as you go forward. So make sure that if you want to think like great people, you got to spend time thinking. I'll kind of land it there. Now, I'll land it there. I want to leave you with one thought. It's from that great philosopher, Winnie the Pooh. Here's what Winnie the Pooh said. He said, "Did you ever stop to think and forget to start again?" Did you ever stop to think and forget to start again? I want to remind you today that it's great to set aside time to think, but that thinking is empowering you to get back in the fight, to start again, to go take territory toward greatness. That's what you're doing. You're chasing greatness. And I want to just remind you today that if you will spend time thinking and calibrating and getting targeted in your own life, in your own leadership, you will be positioned to go and make impact in the lives of others. Let's make sure that we're doing that. Thank you so much for listening today. I want to encourage you to share with your friends. Help us as we continue to grow the channel. We're really grateful we get to hang out with you and together chase greatness.
Thanks for listening to the Randy Gravitt Leadership Podcast. Please help us spread the word by sharing today's episode with your friends and coworkers. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel on Spotify or through iTunes. You'll find all the links on the media tab at randygravitt.com. Now, let's go apply what we've learned and lead ourselves well. Remember, leadership begins at home.